So thank you, Juan. So thank you all, and thanks again for the opportunity to present. I hope you can hear me clearly. So
Yes,
I'm
very well.
co-presenting together with Angela. She's a member of the Patients Consumers Working Party and also an engaged member of our advisory group on raw data. So we're going to start with a refresher on our project, on the raw data project. So I will go through some definitions, the mandate and scope of our project, and while Angie will then present to you the benefits for EU patients and healthcare professionals. Angie will then continue to present you the objective of the upcoming proof of concept pilot before handing over back to me to cover the progress made so far and the next steps planned. So just a bit to remind you what we mean with raw data. So raw data, individual patient data or patient level data is defined as any data, including imaging one, that comes at an individual patient level and is directly accessible in terms of reanalysis or additional analysis. This type of data can be structured in various electronic formats, and I give you here some examples and the format we can ask during the proof of concept pilot, which are the CDISC, it's the Clinical Data Interchange Standards Consortium format. So our agency, EMA, currently receives the clinical trial data as part of modules 4 and 5 in all marketing authorization application dossiers. However, the data is provided as PDF listings, which is a format that does not support or even hinders data analysis. In contrast to that, IPD is directly accessible in terms of reanalysis, additional analysis, as also visualization. And so our project was set up in order to assist with recommendation 6. So if you click once more of the Big Data Steering Group work plan in order to build the EU network capability to analyze big data. So the project's vision is to support better decision making throughout the product lifecycle of medicines with valid and reliable evidence from clinical trials. So as we would like the network to understand and take informed decisions on the place of analysis of raw data for future regulatory submissions, the project aims to determine if there is any regulatory benefit, if there is any added value when having access to such data. And we're going to do that via pilots of analysis of raw data before we come back to CHMP with our recommendations. And to begin our effort, it was important to have in place procedures and safeguards to process such data, of course, in accordance with data protection legislation. So in order to examine in detail the network's capacity and capability to receive and process raw data, we have planned to establish an advisory group on raw data. This group has been successfully established in July 2021, and it is a multidisciplinary group consisting of CHMP working party members and patient representatives across different NCAs. We have then planned to move on and perform our pilot that will kick off later this year in order to establish the value of raw data analysis. And finally, you can imagine that we're dealing with multiple stakeholders, so engagement with them is a crucial part of our project, and for this reason, we have also developed a communication plan. And next slide, please, and I think I will now hand over to Angie that will go through the expected benefits.
Thanks, Astikia. So I'm just going to, as she says, take you through some of the expected benefits for patients and healthcare professionals. To give you a bit of perspective on the background, the EMA carried out a retrospective review of previous assessment experiences from different regulatory agencies to really understand some of these potential benefits. And this review identified several benefits for different stakeholder groups. And here you can see some of those identified for patients and healthcare professionals. And these high-level benefits include reassurance that medicines continue to be authorized based on robust evidence, thanks to access to raw data that can improve the understanding of the clinical study results. Thanks to this understanding and resulting in fewer complex questions to the applicants, there may be faster access to innovative medicines and optimization of their use, with improved safety and efficacy for the targeted patient groups. This also improves the ability to stratify and target patient groups and populations through these subgroup analyses of raw data that allow patient groups to be better defined and identify those that are most likely to benefit from the medicine in question. And finally, connected to this, there'll be improved or potentially be improved and refined product labeling, thanks to clear identification and better targeting of these subgroups. So in the next few slides, Iftikhia and I will give you a brief update on progress with the project and the upcoming pilots. Thanks to the next slide. So as a brief reminder, the mandate of the proof of concept pilots is to pilot the analysis of raw data from marketing authorization dossiers and understand how this can support the assessment of initial marketing authorization applications. And in 2022, the key activities will be to proceed with the pilots of visualization and analysis of raw data from these dossiers, to understand, first of all, what the practical implications might be for these analyses, their benefits, and how this could support the assessment process. And just one final slide from me, if you could move on. So as Iftikhia mentioned, a raw data advisory group was established last year. As she said, this is a multidisciplinary group, and you can see here some of the members listed from the different working parties, steering groups, and network experts. And just to say that there are 3 advisory group members from the Patients and Consumers Working Party. They are my colleagues Russell Wheeler from Euroaudis, Nikos Dedes from EATG, and myself from Alzheimer Europe. And I will hand back over to Iftikhia for the remainder of this presentation.
Thank you, Angie. Next slide, please. So yeah, Angie already said that our patient representatives sitting at the advisory group or raw data are quite highly engaged members and provide input and guidance during the design phase of our pilot, which is currently ongoing. And worth mentioning that a public announcement on the pilot will be published on EMA's website by late June, so it's quite close. And it will cover the pilot's objectives, the timelines, and the scope, as well as ways for applicants or marketing authorization holders to express interest in participating in our pilot. And we also do hope that this information will also be informative to the public, of course. As we really also value individuals' health data, we want to make sure that during the pilot, it will be the data will be processed according to data protection legislation. And for this reason, a data protection impact assessment is currently underway and is expected to be finalized in the second quarter or early quarter 3 of 2022, and before our pilot can kick off, of course. And the data protection notice and the records of data processing will be made publicly available and will also be included in EMA's website for anyone wishing to go through them. So in terms of what's next, so the pilot will kick off in September 2022, and from this time onwards, raw data from procedures can be submitted to our agency. During the course of the pilot, we will be collecting feedback via surveys or interviews from all stakeholders directly involved in order to inform future decision making. In 2023, we expect to be able to compile some interim lessons learned, while in 2024, the final lessons learned from the pilot will be available and will be publicly shared. And finally, I would like to note that targeted communication to patients and healthcare professionals will be developed once learnings from the pilot are available and is already included in our project's communications plan. And I think with my next slide, I would like to close my talk by thanking again Russell, Nikos, who I believe are with us today. And I would also like to thank my colleague Marcia Rookbale for all her efforts as the raw data pilot's lead. And thanks for your attention. We also try to cut some time back, and we're happy to respond to any questions at the end of the session. Thank you.